Rick's reflections were interrupted by a phone call. An unfamiliar number. Who could it be? Probably my boss calling. Another dissatisfied client again? Hello? Rick answered. Good day. This is the German embassy contacting you. Are you Rick Wallace? Yes, it's me. We have received documents in your name for inheritance in Germany from your father, Heinrich Walter. We need you to come to the embassy and collect some papers. Are you sure you haven't made a mistake? No, there is no mistake on our part. Try to come to us within 3 days. Don't forget your passport and birth certificate. All right, Rick replied perplexedly and hung up. Some kind of prank. What inheritance? What Germany? He muttered. Sitting on the couch, Rick continued to contemplate his life. He had just come from the court, where he had finalized his divorce from Evelyn, a woman he had lived with for 6 years. 6 whole years, and this is how it ends, he thought to himself. For the past 2 years, many things hadn't been working in their family life. Rick wasn't giving her enough attention and time. Evelyn wanted a higher salary, and there were other issues she couldn't explain. They had a daughter, Linda, who had turned 5 just 2 months ago. The divorce was particularly hard for her. She loved both her parents deeply, but Evelyn was determined to separate, constantly insisting, "Why do you need this auto repair shop? Find a decent job with a higher salary." Rick owned his own auto repair shop. The income wasn't like that of oligarchs, but it was enough to live on. Apparently, Evelyn needed more for a comfortable life. Rick went to his auto repair shop. He had to collect the earnings and meet with the parts supplier. When he returned home to his apartment late in the evening, he was tired not so much physically as emotionally. His daughter, who was suffering more than her parents combined, lingered in his thoughts. I'll have to figure something out. I'll drive her to school in the morning and pick her up when I can, he thought. The apartment where Evelyn and their daughter would live was on the other side of the city, their second apartment purchased for their daughter. They had rented it out before the divorce. The next morning, Rick went to his parents' house in the suburbs, not having visited them for a month. During breakfast, he shared the call from the embassy. Rick, go there, see what those documents are about. When we adopted you during the Soviet era, we received no information about your birth parents from the orphanage. They only told us that your parents were neither alcoholics nor drug addicts. Maybe this is not a scam, Karen, Rick's adoptive mother, suggested. His parents didn't hide that they adopted him at the age of 3 from an orphanage. Secrets like these could lead to unpleasant consequences, even a rupture in relationships. Rick loved them as his own parents and had never heard anything suggesting otherwise from either his parents or himself. Son, don't be upset about the divorce. I'm sure things will work out for you, you're still young. You'll find a woman who suits you, his mother comforted him. But Linda misses you a lot. The next day, Rick managed to go to the embassy only by lunchtime. After checking his documents, the embassy representative politely offered coffee and began discussing the inheritance. The Walter family is highly respected in Germany. Your father, Heinrich Walter, is currently very ill. That's all I know. Upon your arrival in Germany, you will inherit a portion of the family estate near Munich, a small house on the Mediterranean coast in Nice, France, a Mercedes car, and $300,000. This is all after your arrival in Germany. Now, please take this envelope in your name, said the embassy representative. Rick didn't know what to say, finding it hard to believe what was happening. It seemed more like some kind of mockery. Listen, I already have little time. I can't afford to waste it, you understand? If you're misleading me, then. Rick stopped himself and sat back in his chair. Rick Wallace, I understand your state of mind, but believe me, there can be no mistakes. Before preparing and printing the documents, they are thoroughly checked multiple times. Moreover, we are talking about millions of dollars, the man continued. You mentioned a smaller amount earlier, didn't you? Rick asked. I am currently referring to the value of the estate portion. Its exact value is unknown, but it is very high. Rick opened the envelope, finding $100 bills and a letter. You, Rick, do not have an international passport. We can assist you in obtaining one as quickly as possible since we have been instructed to provide you with assistance. Approach the secretary, she will inform you of the necessary documents. Congratulations, and thank you. If you have any questions, you know where to find me. By the way, my name is Christopher. All right, thank you. Sitting in his car, Rick closed his eyes, leaning back. Am I a millionaire now? Well, let's not rush things, Rick, he told himself. When I get to Germany, it will be clear who I am, Wallace or Walter, a millionaire or just a divorced owner of an auto repair shop with a blurry future. Upon returning home, he opened the envelope with the letter. Hello, Rick. It turns out you grew up in a different family and in a different country. I only recently found out where you live and what your name is. I hope I'll still be alive when you come to Germany. I really want to see and hug you. I have a lot to tell and show you. Hugging you and waiting. In the envelope, there are $2,000 for travel expenses. Don't take it as disrespect. By the way, your real name is Leon. After reading the letter, Rick sat in the kitchen for a long time. How life can change in a matter of minutes, he thought. It turns out I am not who I thought I was. A week later, Rick received his passport and obtained a visa. Christopher wasn't lying about helping. The next week, he bought a plane ticket. The earliest flight was in 2 days. Well, it's okay. There will be time to gather his thoughts and think everything over. Rick didn't tell anything to his friends and relatives, explaining that he was going on a 1-week vacation to Europe. While waiting to board the plane at the airport, his mobile rang. Evelyn. Yes, Evelyn, I'm listening. Rick, hi. So, you're suffering the planning to relax? You never wanted to go on vacation with me, she said with arrogance. Did you call me to express your grievances? You forgot that I'm not obliged to listen to you anymore. We're divorced, wake up. You've achieved what you wanted, and Rick hung up. In the plane, a very attractive and beautiful girl sat next to him. When they took off, Rick struck up a conversation with her. I've flown so many times, but when we take off and land, my heart is ready to jump out. Like a child, honestly. It's not the worst. My uncle doesn't even enter a plane, he panics. By the way, my name is Felicia, the girl said. Nice to meet you, Rick. His heart skipped a beat, and shivers ran down his spine. Are you in Munich on business or for leisure? Felicia asked. Leisure, visiting relatives, Rick replied after a moment of contemplation. And you? I was flying to another city for work. I'm originally from Germany. I spent my entire childhood in Cologne. You speak English very well, Rick said. My grandmother is American, and I often have to travel to America for work. The young people chatted very pleasantly throughout the journey. Time passed so quickly that he forgot to ask for her address and phone number. As soon as the passengers started disembarking, Felicia was near the exit, and Rick couldn't find her at Munich Airport. At the terminal exit, airport security and police suggested Rick go to an inspection room, to which he kindly agreed. During a personal search, the police officer pulled a small bag with white powder from Rick's jacket. "Is this yours?" the police officer asked in the presence of an interpreter. "No, I'm seeing it for the first time." For the next 5 hours, Rick was interrogated by representatives of various agencies, transported from one building to another. He had no strength left for any explanations. Finally, they brought him to a place that resembled an investigative isolation cell, locked him in a solitary room. After sleeping for 2 hours, he had the opportunity to analyze the events that had occurred. Drugs could have been planted on him either by the police officers themselves during the search or by Felicia. "Where have I gotten myself into?" And I really liked Felicia. Her voice was soft, very pleasant, and melodic. And she was so beautiful that until that moment, he was ready to follow her to the ends of the earth. How am I going to untangle this mess? Rick spent another day in the cell. By lunchtime, the guard opened the door and led him somewhere. Entering one of the rooms, Rick saw an elderly man in a jacket and tie. "Hello, Rick. My name is Bruno, and I am the manager of the Walter family estate. I'll try to solve your problem, but it won't be easy. The content of the package they found on you is enough for a lifetime." "But," Bruno interrupted Rick and continued, "it doesn't matter whose drugs they were and how they ended up with you. Dietrich and Hilda Walter are influential people, and they will try to get you out, no matter the cost." "Bruno, how is my father?" Rick didn't even bother asking who Hilda was. "Unfortunately, Heinrich Walter passed away 3 days ago." "My condolences." "Heinrich was a good man. I've known him for a very long time." Rick couldn't say anything. His throat went dry. He remembered his father's letter, in which he mentioned looking forward to seeing his son and discussing many things. The next morning, Rick was released. Near the state building where Rick had spent several days, a Rolls-Royce was waiting. Bruno came out, helped load Rick's things into the trunk, and settled in the car. "How did you get me out, Bruno?" "A bail of 100,000 euros was deposited for your release. You're free, thanks to your Aunt Hilda." "I have an aunt too," Rick said, making a surprised face. "Bruno, my friend, can you tell me about all my relatives? So I don't get lost at an inconvenient moment." "Everything has its time, Mr. Leon." "Rick. Please call me Rick." 30 minutes later, the Alps appeared in the distance. Snow-capped peaks rose straight into the sky. 10 minutes later, opening the window, fresh air flooded the car air with a special taste and aroma. "It's very beautiful here, and the air is special," Rick said. "Yes, you're right. This is one of the most beautiful places in the Alps. Many people would like to live here," Bruno replied. "We're almost there." A few kilometers away, the Walter family estate came into view. It was a small castle of dark gray color, built in a semicircle in 3 floors in a Gothic style. The castle was surrounded by neatly trimmed trees and dozens of brightly colored flowers. Everything around was green. Behind, there was a blue lake that originated at the foot of the Alpine Mountains. Near the entrance, a large elliptical fountain was located. "Let's go, Rick. I'll introduce you to Mrs. Hilda first, and then I'll show you to your rooms." "Dear nephew," Hilda exclaimed when she saw Rick. "We've been waiting for you." The elderly woman hugged Rick, holding a cigar in her right hand. The smell of alcohol emanated from her. "How do you like it here?" "Cozy," Rick replied, looking around. "Bruno, take our guest to the prepared room. He needs to rest from the journey, wash up, and put himself in order." During lunch, we'll talk about matters, and Leon will tell us why he uses this stuff, Hilda said, speaking toward Rick while taking drags from her cigar. You probably mean the powder that was planted on me? I don't know who did what to whom. I can say one thing, getting our family rid of disgrace was not cheap. She desperately pretended that her nephew's explanations were of absolutely no interest to her. The interior of the estate continued to amaze with its luxury. Gold and silver were present in every room. Various paintings, antique objects, everything spoke of the fact that very wealthy people lived here, a family with its long history. Rick tried not to show his amazement, answering Bruno's questions with some delay. Bruno, where is my grandfather Dietrich? Mr. Dietrich is currently in the hospital undergoing procedures. He goes for treatments 3 times a week in a private clinic. They discovered lung cancer in him 3 years ago. He smokes a lot, and he still doesn't intend to quit. But, with his condition, he could have the procedures here at the estate. Yes, that was the case until your arrival. The day before yesterday, Mrs. Hilda decided that her father should be treated in the clinic. He needs to move more and communicate with people, Bruno continued. When they entered the room, Bruno explained what was where. Rick sat on the bed and asked, "Tell me about my father. Why did he die? What was he doing? What kind of person was he?" Bruno hesitated, as if recalling something. 26 years ago, the late Heinrich, with your mother, fell from a great height when the cable of an electric lift broke at the ski resort. Mia died instantly, and your father suffered serious injuries. All these years, he has been undergoing treatment. In the last 2 years, he was doing much better. He could even walk by himself. And now, over the past few months, he seemed to wither, getting worse and worse. Bruno spoke reluctantly, with some disgust towards Rick. And what kind of relationship did Aunt Hilda have with my father? Leon, oh, I apologize, Rick. I wouldn't like to talk about this topic. Let's say they were normal. Excuse me, I need to leave. I have many tasks from Mrs. Hilda. Yes, of course. One moment, Bruno. Can you tell me the reason for such indifferent treatment towards me? Can I ask you that? I categorically reject drugs, he answered a bit irritably. Oh, is that it? I certainly don't intend to justify myself to anyone. And it's probably hard to believe, but I've never tried drugs in my life. Thank you, Bruno, for being honest, and the manager left the room. Yes, I still need to try to figure everything out here, Rick thought, lying on the bed. If my wife could see me lying on the bed in shoes, she would bite me. Closing his eyes, Rick remembered Felicia, her gentle voice, her beautiful face. It seemed that everything about her was perfect, without a flaw. Is she somehow connected with someone from my new relatives? Why did someone need to plant drugs on me, and for what purpose? After all, I was still pulled out of there. There were even more questions arising from this. Father, I'm a little late. Just a little. What a pity we didn't see each other. When Rick came down for lunch, Aunt Hilda, apparently Grandfather Dietrich, some woman, and Bruno were sitting at the table. Leon. You can immediately see that the man has put himself in order. Sit next to me. Father, this is the grandson from America. Remember, I told you about him? And the late Heinrich told you about him. Grandfather was in a wheelchair, unable to say anything coherent. He made inappropriate movements, giving the impression that he had problems with coordination and speech. Hello, Grandpa, Rick said and sat in the designated place. And this is my daughter Louisa, your cousin, Aunt Hilda said, pointing to the woman sitting opposite. Rick had already stopped paying attention to the fact that Hilda had stopped calling him Leon. and he saw no point in expressing his dissatisfaction. Louisa constantly nodded in agreement with her mother, always laughed when Hilda made sharp and arrogant jokes. She didn't react to Rick at all, as if he didn't exist. She sat there and devoured a large piece of cake. Louisa's appetite corresponded to her figure. She was the complete opposite of her mother, who was thin and slender. Rick even thought that she was excessively thin. "Leon, tell us about yourself. What do you do? What have you achieved?" "Louisa and I even made a bet," Hilda said sarcastically. "Of course, you must share the story that happened to you at the airport." When Rick was telling about his life, Aunt Hilda kept interrupting. Not waiting for Rick to finish, she hurried to move on to business. "Let's go to the study. Very important documents require attention," Hilda said, swiftly heading to Dietrich's study. Grandfather, dozing off, slowly spun the wheels of his wheelchair, following everyone. Seated in a leather chair, Hilda lit another cigarette, took out a burgundy leather folder, grabbed some documents, and handed them to Rick. "Here, Leon, you need to sign these." Taking the documents, Rick saw that they were all in German. Despite speaking a bit of German, he wouldn't understand their meaning literally. "And how do I sign them if I don't know German well, Auntie? Do you think we would deceive you? Leon, how could you? And after everything I've done for you? You were informed about all the inheritance conditions back at the embassy in America." "No, Auntie, I don't want to seem rude, but I never sign documents without reading them. It's a matter of principle for me. I've been in very awkward situations precisely because of this. I think it won't be difficult to have them translated into English and notarized. But that will take several days." Hilda raised her voice a bit. From Aunt Hilda's face, it was evident that she didn't expect this turn of events. She was barely holding back from showing her true irritation. "That's not the way we do things here. By doing this, you're showing disrespect to your aunt, Rick." Her eyes moved from Hilda to Rick and back. "Auntie, I repeat that I didn't want to offend you or show disrespect. Nephew of mine, but you're not in America. Trust is the foundation of everything in Germany," she said, taking a sip of whiskey. "Let me take the documents to the notary and get everything done quickly, so as not to inconvenience you." "No, I'll do it myself," taking the documents, she irritably said, and everyone, except for Rick, left the study. "I've known my relatives for less than a day, but it feels like a lifetime. And trusting them is out of the question. Father, why did you find me so late?" "Apparently, he wanted to tell me something important," Rick said, looking at the ceiling. He started to examine the study, hoping to find something left by his father. He couldn't just leave like this, knowing nothing and suspecting nothing, he thought to himself. Father must have left me something. But he found nothing. Rick opened the window wide, sat in the armchair at the writing desk. Lost in thought, he fell asleep. He woke up refreshed and full of energy, and the sun was already setting. Rick had the feeling that he had slept for 8 to 10 hours. But he checked the time, it was only 3 o'clock. Fresh air works wonders, he thought, and headed towards the exit. When he left the study, he found no one among his relatives, not even Bruno in the study, although the Rolls-Royce was in the garage. Passing to the backyard, Rick saw a small car, resembling a golf cart he had seen on TV in American movies before. Why not explore the property on this wonder car? Sitting behind the wheel, he drove along the lake. After a few kilometers, he stopped. Fishing would be nice. Here, probably, it's not fishing but a dream. I haven't taken fishing rods out of the garage for about 3 years due to my work. I wonder what kind of fish they have here. I need to talk to Bruno, he probably knows. Opening the drawer on the back seat, Rick saw binoculars. Very handy, he thought. I'll just take a look at a spot for fishing. And tomorrow morning, I'll find out who's here. Examining everything around, Rick noticed a large house on the opposite shore, resembling a hunting or fishing lodge. I'll fish here, it only remains to find fishing rods. Maybe there are some in the lodge? He headed towards the lodge. Having to return through the estate since there was no road on the other side, about a kilometer from the small house, Rick decided to stop and take another look around. Peering through the binoculars towards the house, he saw a parked electric car, identical to his, and a gray-colored car. Interesting. He observed as a girl came out of the house, but her face wasn't visible as she looked the other way. Following her was Louisa, his sister. I don't think they were fishing here, Rick thought. The girl turned towards Rick. His back suddenly felt sweaty. He crouched down as the girl looked straight at him. Felicia. Then Aunt Hilda came out of the house, got into the golf cart with Louisa, and they all drove away. Rick arrived at the estate first. His absence apparently went unnoticed. Strolling in the backyard, Rick enjoyed the beautiful landscapes. I wonder if my father had his own study here. There, I might find something, he pondered. Bruno approached him. Rick, Mrs. Hilda can't find you. Yes, of course, I'll go to her now. In the living room, Aunt Hilda was waiting for him. Nothing had changed. She was still smoking a cigar and sipping expensive whiskey. Leon, what do you think about inspecting the summer cottage in Nice? After signing the documents, it will be yours. There's also Henry's car, his old Mercedes, which he struggled with for half his life. In the meantime, we'll prepare the document translations and notarize them. I just came from the notary. It will take 5 or 6 days. And how do I get there? I assume it's not a short journey. In such cases, we rent a private plane. After my call, you'll be able to fly calmly in a couple of hours. You'll be met in Nice, and the return will be arranged in the same way. Yes, of course. I'd be happy, Auntie. During the flight, which lasted about an hour, Rick couldn't stop thinking about Felicia. He increasingly realized that he had feelings for her, something more than just a traveling companion. He was even ready to forgive her for the setup. But there was also fear, as she had been involved with his sister and aunt. Another trick or setup could be looming in the near future. At the airport, Rick was greeted by the housekeeper named Sylvia, a young and attractive woman who was not shy and constantly flirted with him. She came to pick him up in her car. Sylvia, how long have you been working as the housekeeper? Just over a week, Mr. Leon. Rick. My name is Rick. And who interviewed you for the job? I apologize for being tactless. Mrs. Hilda conducted the interview at her estate in Germany. She's a very pleasant woman. Are you originally from Germany? I have roots from America. My grandparents have passed away, but I used to visit them there. The entire way, Sylvia chattered about something, but Rick didn't hear her. He was lost in his thoughts. We're here, Sylvia said, stopping near a beautiful villa. The small house, as explained at the embassy, exceeded all of Rick's expectations. It was not a cottage, it was a beautiful modern mansion, a villa, they called it locally. About 250 square meters, 2 floors with panoramic windows. The house resembled a Rubik's Cube that had been broken. The second floor protruded above the first in a chaotic order. The area was small, around 15 acres, but everything was used with maximum efficiency and benefit: greenery, palm trees, flowers. On the backyard, there was a terrace overlooking the Mediterranean Sea, a swimming pool, and below, a private beach. This is not a cottage, it's simply a dream. Dad, I've been thinking about a house like this my whole life. Rick thought to himself. Too bad you're not here right now. Rick tried not to show his admiration, behaving restrained, attempting to resemble an aristocrat. I'll go for a swim, unable to resist the temptation to take a dip in the sea, Rick said and walked down. Mr. Rick, what will you have for lunch? I'm not hungry, thank you, he said, not because he didn't want to eat, but because he wasn't sure if he could trust her. Who knows what she might add to the food? When he came to the beach, he realized he forgot his towel and returned to the villa. He silently entered and overheard Sylvia's conversation on the mobile phone. Yes, I understand, Mrs. Hilda. It will be done, of course. I won't let you down, Sylvia said. After finishing the call, she noticed Rick and startled in surprise. But then pretended as if nothing had happened. After bathing, Rick, in a good mood, took a shower and entered the living room. Sylvia, I need to talk to you, sit down. The girl smiled and, continuing to flirt, sat down beside him. Unfortunately, I have to say that you are fired. I don't need a manager or any assistant, I'll manage on my own. Sylvia turned pale and coughed. But Mrs. Hilda hired me for the job. No problem. Tell me, how much do I owe you? Try to leave my house within an hour. I'm ready to pay for a hotel for you for a few days. Or, if you need to go to Munich, I'll arrange a flight. Rick spoke with such firmness that the girl got scared. She didn't know what to say. I understand. After Sylvia left the house, in the evening, Rick decided to check out the garage, inspect his father's vintage Mercedes, as Aunt Hilda put it. Opening the garage door, Rick was left speechless. There stood a two-door black Mercedes convertible, untouched by a speck of dust, without a single chip or scratch. The car was in perfect condition, despite being a 1960 model. That's where my love for Mercedes comes from, Rick exclaimed. Yes, your father assembled this car from parts, although, for most of his life, he could only get around in a wheelchair. Hello, Rick. Hello, he said, turning to the mysterious woman standing behind the fence on the street. He looked surprised because it was awkward to ask who this woman was. My name is Catherine. Henry said you would definitely come here. Your father only managed to ride this car twice. He called it Dory. Can I know who you are to my father? I am his wife, but we are not officially married. We lived together for 8 years. Come on in, why are you standing there? Let's go inside, Rick said, bewildered. I don't even know where to start asking you, Catherine. I understand your state. Henry was looking forward to meeting you, but fate decided otherwise, the woman cried. Henry rarely went to the family estate. He didn't like this place. He didn't get along with his sister and father. 3 months ago, he went to Munich to meet the person who found you. Henry hired a detective who was searching all this time. When he found out everything, he was just happy. He called me and briefly told me everything. He was planning to go to America himself to meet his son. Henry began arranging the inheritance. In Munich, he fell ill. He spent several days in the hospital. When he returned to Nice a week later, he was much worse. In a month, he lost a lot of weight, started speaking and thinking worse. That's when he decided to inform you, Rick, about the inheritance. About having a father. Catherine, what are your relations with Hilda? Rick asked. She knows nothing about me. At least, she doesn't know that we loved each other. She perceives me as a housekeeper and servant. My house is right there, next door. Catherine pointed to the neighboring house on the right. There was indeed a small, well-kept old house. Catherine, you look very young. Yes, I'm 20 years younger than Henry, if that's what you mean, she said as if feeling guilty. Do you know anything about my mom? How I ended up in America and the reason for all this? Rick was overwhelmed with emotions. For Henry, it was a forbidden topic. He blamed his father and sister for it. His father strongly opposed his marriage to your mom because she was American. Henry didn't communicate with his father at all. How did you end up in America? Why were you separated? I don't know. He didn't tell me, and I didn't ask him extra questions. I didn't want him to remember and get upset. I'm sorry, Rick, we've been talking for more than 2 hours. I have to run. We will meet again. Catherine hugged Rick and left. Rick drank strong coffee and went out to the terrace. Will I ever know the truth? There is no father. Catherine knows little. It seems that no one else will reveal all the secrets to me, Rick pondered. The weather was splendid, calm sea, a gentle warm breeze. The sun was already halfway behind the horizon. Dory. I need to ride Dory. Suddenly, Rick had an idea. He drove all over the town, which wasn't that big. Who would have thought that I would be driving a $250,000 car along the Mediterranean coast? Here I have my own house, a luxurious one. Rick thought. Returning from the eastern suburb, he saw a girl digging under the hood of a car. Stopping behind her, Rick got out of the car. Miss, do you need help? Yes, she replied. And when he saw her face, he froze. Felicia? Hello, Rick. This is no longer a coincidence, it seems to be fate. What? Another assignment for you? Wait, Rick, this time I'm not. Felicia opened the door of her car, sat in the seat, covered her face with her hands, and burst into tears. I didn't, you need to know. I came here to help you. You already helped me once. Rick stood near the girl and didn't know what to do next. Felicia, when they found the package with my belongings, I couldn't believe until the last moment that it was you. But the facts spoke for themselves. Is this another setup to trap me? Did Hilda give you the assignment? How do you know? I saw how you talked to her. Yes, Hilda wants to get rid of you, but I didn't come here for that. I want to help you. We have 4 days to do something. I rented a car and came to you. Why should I believe you? Rick asked. Why would I tell you all this? I would do my job, and you wouldn't have known about it. Rick drove Felicia to his house. Do you have something stronger? Nervously asked Felicia. Rick poured a full glass of whiskey, handed it to the girl, and went out to the terrace. She followed. How do you know my aunt? I've known her since childhood. I often visited your estate, and sometimes even played with your sister, Louise. What is your relationship with the Walter family? Bruno is my father. Well. Rick went into the house, poured himself a full glass of whiskey. This is very interesting. My mom died during childbirth, so I grew up with my father. And that's an overstatement. My father disappeared and continues to disappear for whole days at work. Initially, your grandfather, Dietrich, didn't really like me, so I rarely visited the estate, left to myself. I had a caregiver whom I manipulated since I was 8. My poor academic performance and wandering around the streets were not approved by my father. We used to argue a lot. Over time, he stopped paying attention to me altogether. I think he couldn't care less about me. In general, I ended up in a group where they followed a criminal code. I dealt with antiques, cleaned the apartments and houses of the wealthy. I liked everything about it. I always had money, expensive clothes, and jewelry. But there were no parents and no significant other. I'm already over 30, and I hadn't truly loved anyone until recently. Felicia looked at Rick and took a sip of her drink. No family, you know? At first, it didn't bother me, but now. A year ago, we cleaned out another wealthy couple, and I got caught. By the way, the house is not far from Walter's estate. I was facing 7 to 10 years. It turned out the owners of that estate were acquaintances of Hilda, and she pulled some strings to get me out. But with one condition, now I have to occasionally fulfill her, let's call them, assignments, requests. And if I don't comply or betray her, her connections will bury me for a long time, very long, the girl cried. You won't believe it, but I haven't cried in 20 years. Rick didn't say a word. He just listened and stared at the sea. More accurately, into the distance, as it was already getting dark. When Hilda explained to me that I needed to plant drugs on an American, I didn't know who you were and what I would feel. But when she told me that I needed to get rid of you, I already knew who you were. Yes, she didn't really hide it. Felicia lowered her head. Rick hugged her shoulders. She promised to give me your house here in Nice. I agreed, said I would do everything, or else she would find someone else from the outside. Your father treated me well, I felt sorry for him. He suffered so much. His character, willpower, and endurance were enviable. When I saw him for the first time without the wheelchair, I even hugged him. Felicia, the last few days of my life are so eventful that my brain is exploding. It all started from the moment they called me from the embassy. Or rather, from the moment of the divorce with my wife. In a few days, my life turned upside down. Right now, I can't say if I'm happy about it or not. But I'm definitely glad that I met you. The circumstances of our meeting could have been more positive. And today's meeting? Rick asked. It's a coincidence, I really had trouble with the rented car. I took the most expensive one, but apparently, our meeting was inevitable. And about the city? I lied to you, it was part of my legend. And about growing up in Cologne, that was a lie too. Do you know anything about my mom and why I ended up in an orphanage in America? No, I don't know anything about that. I first learned about Uncle Heinrich having a son at the police. I have a friend working there. And when I was finding out about you, well, they informed me about the results of what I planted for you. And then Hilda told me. Do you have any options to get out of this situation? What do we do now? Rick asked. There are not many options. In Munich, it's useless to deal with the police. Many are on her payroll. But here, I think it might work. The next early morning, Rick decided to visit Catherine and invite her to breakfast. Maybe she'll tell him something else. Maybe she forgot something in the excitement. Knocking on the door, Catherine opened it. Rick, good morning. Good morning, Catherine. Can I invite you to breakfast? Unfortunately, I can't right now. I need to take my son Stefan to school. You have a son? Rick asked in surprise. Yes, he's 7 years old. Rick froze. So, Stefan is my brother? Yes, Rick, Stefan is Heinrich's son, which means he's your brother. So, why didn't you tell me yesterday? Well, there wasn't really a reason, Catherine replied, flustered, and called the boy. Rick met Stefan. The boy was quite sharp, asking Rick all the questions that interested him and agreeing that Rick would pick him up from school in the car, Doris. Heinrich only took his son for a ride once, and he loved it, Catherine said regretfully. I'll take Stefan for now, and you can go inside. They are waiting for you there. Waiting for me? Rick asked. Rick entered the house, and Bruno was sitting at the table near the window, holding a cup of tea. "Rick, hello. You probably didn't expect to see me here?" "Hello, Bruno." "Yes, you're right, I didn't expect that." "Sit down, we have a lot to talk about. I assume you have many questions whose answers you haven't found yet." "Bruno, your daughter is in my father's house. Should I call her? Do you already know that she's my daughter?" "Well, then it will be even easier." "No, there's no need for that right now. We haven't had a good relationship with Felicia for the last 15 years. It was hard for both of us, but I hope things will improve soon. We and your father." Bruno paused. "We don't have much time, Rick, so we need to act quickly. There won't be a second chance. Hilda doesn't know I'm here in France. I flew on a regular flight. Heinrich was a good man. He helped many people in his life. Doris, he collected it not because he couldn't buy a complete and slightly used one. He wanted to assemble it himself. He put his soul into repairing that car. A few months ago, when they found you, he finally said to me, 'Well, Bruno, now I can die.' The main thing is that my son becomes a real man with all the qualities inherent in him and can continue my work. Unfortunately, all these years he wasn't by my side. Not everything in life depends on us." And then Heinrich said, "Bruno, my son cannot be different. My blood runs in him, the blood of his mother, my beloved woman. I can't believe it. I've been through all this for a reason. All these trials were given to me not just like that. That's why you were so cautious at first." Rick continued, listening intently to Bruno. "Not only that. Hilda shouldn't have any reason to doubt me. Recently, she has been controlling every move of mine. Not to mention Felicia, who has to do all the dirty work. But if Felicia didn't help her, Hilda would have destroyed us, me and my daughter. You can't imagine her capabilities. Hilda orchestrated an unfortunate accident at the ski resort. She didn't think Heinrich would survive, let alone recover. She sees no other heirs except her daughter Louise. Bruno, Felicia loves you, and she misses having a father. We talked for a long time yesterday. She thinks you don't care about her," Rick said. "Very soon, we'll have enough time for everything. I hope for that. I'm an old selfish fool. I used to try to treat my daughter as an adult. I didn't understand that Felicia needed a father, not an uncle who leaves early in the morning and comes back well past midnight. Or sometimes doesn't come back at all," Bruno reflected. "I used to blame Felicia for my wife's death. So, Rick, I'm about to die, and I've only now understood the meaning and value of life. And it's all thanks to your father. Recently, he was like a brother to me. I had no one closer. Heinrich was very wise and smart. Although when you're wise, I don't think you need to be smart. What about Grandpa Dietrich? It all started with him. He was strongly against Heinrich marrying an American woman. The reason, I think, is clear to you. It's the war where Dietrich's relatives and parents died. But when he learned about the accident, he categorically didn't support Hilda. Dietrich even said he would disinherit her. Although, for many years, Grandpa watched his inhumane actions and did nothing. Apparently, he supported her in something. And just a few years ago, Heinrich and I found out about it. Hilda doesn't find it interesting to kill her father. As long as he's alive, there are investments. If he's gone, she'll have to take care of the business herself. Sometimes Hilda just needs to say the name of her father, Dietrich Walter, to solve some problem. So her main task was to get rid of her brother, Heinrich. And a new heir for her nephew was not part of her plans at all. What kind of business does the Walter family have? Rick asked, not interrupting the conversation for a long time. Banks and commercial real estate. There are shops and a few gas stations, but those are just small things. Despite the fact that your father was in a wheelchair for a long time, recently he was the one managing all the affairs. And when Hilda found out about you and that Heinrich was preparing the documents for inheritance, your father was poisoned. How and with what specific substance is still unknown. Doctors and specialists can only shrug their shoulders. Our main mistake was underestimating Hilda very much. Heinrich hoped until the last moment that his sister would come to her senses. He talked to her a lot on this topic, but she apparently took your father's kindness for weakness. Why didn't my father find me earlier? Rick asked. There was no one to look for. After the accident, Heinrich was in a coma for about 4 months, and everyone was told that Leon died of pneumonia in the hospital. You even had a funeral. But in reality, you were sent to an orphanage in America. As it turned out, Catherine has been home for a long time. We didn't even notice when she returned. She quietly approached and reminded Rick that it was time to pick up Stefan. He really hopes that you will come for him, she said. Yes, right now. Bruno, I'll pick up my brother, and we'll continue. Are you okay with that? Of course, Rick. Heinrich and I talked for a long time about how you would react to meeting your little brother. He would be happy to know that you got along. Without saying anything, Rick left. Waiting outside the private school, Rick saw Stefan running towards him at full speed. Uncle Rick, Uncle Rick. I couldn't wait for the end of classes, the boy shouted with all his might. Stefan rushed into Rick's arms. Rick was even taken aback and also hugged the boy. Uncle Rick, my dad died. I miss him so much. He often appears in my dreams, Stefan continued hugging Rick, tears streaming from his eyes. I'm not crying. Dad said that real men shouldn't cry and that I would have an older brother. Stefan, just call me Rick. I'm your brother. Okay, I'm very glad to have a brother, and that he's just like you, the boy said. They went to a cafe for ice cream and then drove around for about an hour until Stefan agreed to go home. Parking the car and not having time to close the garage, Felicia approached Rick and hugged him. I'm grateful to you. For what? Rick asked in surprise. For talking to my father, for everything. For being there. For forgiving me. My father and I made amends. Felicia kissed Rick on the lips and ran away. Rick, I set the table, let's go to lunch. We've been waiting for you, you haven't had breakfast yet, the girls shouted with a smile. Everyone was present at lunch, Catherine, Stefan, Bruno, and, of course, Felicia. Recently, Heinrich only talked about the fact that soon his eldest son would be sitting with us at the table. Rick, when your father found out that you were alive, he had a second wind. He loved you, not even knowing what kind of person you were, Catherine said. I miss him a lot, Catherine continued. Catherine, why did Dad name his Mercedes Dory? Rick asked, trying to lighten the mood and change the subject so that Catherine wouldn't cry. In Persian, Dory means shining star. There was still a pile of iron in the garage, and Heinrich had already given her that name, Catherine explained. We need exactly the same car, Rick said. After these words, no one could understand for a long time what he meant. On the same day, Bruno flew to Munich, and a day later, Mrs. Hilda received a call from Nice, reporting that Rick Wallace had crashed his car and was in the hospital in very critical condition. 2 hours later, at the local police station, Felicia called her and reported that everything had been done. Mrs. Hilda, Bruno said, I talked to the doctors on the phone. Leon has only a few days left, but he occasionally comes to his senses. So maybe we should go and sign all the necessary documents while he's still capable? Why do I need that now? Hilda said with pride and satisfaction. All suspicions will be lifted from you. We can say that Leon signed them before the accident. And if the documents are not signed, they may suspect you as well. This is France, Mrs. Hilda. Yes, you're right. Honestly, I thought you weren't with me anymore. Call the airport, we're flying in 3 hours. Upon arrival at the airport in Nice, French police and Interpol officers were waiting for Hilda near the ramp. She was charged with attempting to murder Rick Wallace's nephew and tax manipulation involving commercial real estate registered in her name in France. Bruno and the late Heinrich had been collecting this compromising material for many years. Later, she was charged with attempting to murder her father, Dietrich Walter, and the murder of Rick's mother. Surprisingly, Hilda gave grateful testimony, and it is likely that she will never be released. Dietrich Walter began to recover. Over time, he began to talk and recognize his relatives. Rick took a double surname and became Wallace Walter. Grandfather Dietrich had no expectations for Rick, and at the age of 86, he flew to visit Rick and Felicia, who got married 2 months after all the events. Dietrich felt guilty until his death, but Rick held no grudge against him. Next door to Rick and Felicia, Catherine and Stefan still live. But not in a small cozy house as before, but in a large villa that grandfather Dietrich helped to build. When he comes to visit his elder grandson, Dietrich always disappears with the younger one. Now the grandfather is talking about moving to Nice himself, closer to his favorites. The proposal to move to France was categorically rejected by Rick's parents, but they supported one condition from their son: every 3 months, they would visit Rick and their new relatives. And a year later, their grandson Jimmy. Finding out that her ex-husband inherited property in Europe and receiving a call from the embassy immediately after the divorce, Evelina couldn't find peace. Only a few hours separated me from endless happiness and abundance, she thought. Rick completely provided for his ex-wife. Twice a year, he took their daughter to France. Sometimes Evelina came with her. Bruno became a reliable partner for Rick. Despite his age, Felicia's father did not want to retire. He once said, "Rick, I am obliged to help you continue your father's work." For some reason, the word charity is associated with tax evasion for me, and we are helping orphanages, nursing homes, and poor families in many countries specifically. We are sure that the money genuinely goes to a good cause because we control every penny deposited. Louisa lives in a castle, in the park that will be hers by inheritance along with her mother. She lives comfortably, even more than that. But she is bored without her mother, who is unlikely to be released. Without her mother, who is unlikely to be released, Louisa is gradually deteriorating and gaining weight.